Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of the syndicated talk show People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and of course, successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org, for more info, or you can always email me directly through Benji at alcoleenterprises.com. And people, we are very excited to showcase this next guest here on our network, so do me a favor. Sit back, strap in, and get ready for a wonderful ride. And on the line with us today, we have Pamela L. Johnson. We're going to be discussing her amazing book, 8 Minutes a Day to Make an A. Quick, change your ADHD child now. And it's available for purchase through Amazon as well as barnesandnoble.com. And people, this is a book you need to add to your shelf, okay? This is a remarkable resource. I'm going to go into exactly why you need to do that in just a moment. But before we go any further, let's take a second and point out the fact that Pamela was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by one of the best advertising firms in the business. And of course, you already know I'm talking about Author Unit. So listen to me, people. If you are a writer out there, you have gone through your process, you have spent countless amounts of hours. I'm talking about some sleepless nights creating your masterpiece, and now you've done it. You are finally at the end of the road. You have it completed, but you find yourself in a precarious position because now you need help moving the book you just finished writing. Well, people, do yourself a favor and contact Author Unit. They're one of the best in the business to do it, and this is exactly what their team specializes in. So head on over to authorunit.com today and gather all of the fantastic ways that their team is going to help you do just that. And as I mentioned to you before, Pamela is someone to be praised. Pamela's book that she has written is something that you need to add to your shelf. It's something that you need to gift to others to add to theirs, because this book is remarkable for so many reasons. It is a self-help guide. It's a step-by-step guide to help your children maximize their education. Now, people, understand that this book is nuanced, this book is layered, and we are only going to scratch the surface here today. There is a lot to be discussed and a lot that's going to be left off. So understand, by the time we've completed, you're going to run to Amazon and Barnes & Noble so you can fill in those gaps for yourself. But understand, in addition to this being filled with so many great tips for your children to help maximize their education, it's also filled with plenty of tips for my parents out there as well, because that's right, people, you are just as important to this process as this book, as the educators, and also as your children themselves. And listen, at the end of the day, Pamela is the expert. It's her book, she's written it, it's her system that she has received proven results for, and she's going to be the one to articulate everything much better than I ever could. So do me a favor, make sure you have your notebooks ready, because this is going to be a wonderful education for myself, as well as all of you out there listening in as well. Pamela, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How are you doing today?
Oh, great. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, listen, the pleasure is all ours, Pamela. We are truly looking forward to this. As I mentioned in my opening, I think what you're doing here is special and needed for so many reasons. I think education and the educational system itself is vast, and there's a lot of different maneuvers that can be utilized, but you have broken it down in such an easy to follow format. And I think that's one of the biggest gifts that your book offers. So again, thank you for writing it. Thank you for being a guest here with us to discuss it. And without further ado, let's jump right in. 8 minutes a day to make an A. Pam, tell us a little bit more about it.
Well, I wrote this book, 8 Minutes a Day to Make an A, for my learning centers that I opened in Tennessee several years ago. Several decades ago, actually. And this is an organizational and study system that I developed for my students at my learning centers who enrolled in my centers to bring up their skills, to bring up their grades, and to help them to be more organized. and more motivated. But the parents had tried everything, and they said, nothing works, so I'm calling you. So those were the kids that would come to my center. Nothing works. But they didn't realize that why nothing worked was because it wasn't really an academic problem. It was more of a problem with the way their brain works. And I have attention deficit disorder myself, I found out later on. And it interferes with school quite a bit because we're asked to sit all day long and listen and retain information and then do something with that information. And we have short attention spans. And we don't remember what we hear as well as what we see. So this book helps these students to compensate for that problem. The parents basically had no idea what to do. They felt like their child was lazy. And I said, no, they're not lazy. These kids are not doing this on purpose. The CDC estimates there's over 6 million elementary school students with attention deficit disorder this year in school. And then, of course, that's just elementary school students. So it's a big problem. And schools are not set up to deal with this problem. So what I did was, having ADD myself, it was easier for me to come up with a system to help these children compensate. So the main problems the parents complained about, he's not doing his homework. If he does his homework, he can't find it to turn it in. He's very disorganized. He's not motivated. We have to constantly remind him to do his homework. He loses his work or he forgets to turn it in. You know, and the parents were just so frustrated when they came into my office, they did not understand what the problem was. So I would have to explain to them, you know, a little bit that he's not doing this on purpose. We ADD people, we have trouble maintaining our interest level, low level interest things for us. So we have to learn to compensate for it. So this book is basically compensation techniques and study techniques that parents can use at home to help their child or teen to be successful in school. This worked for hundreds upon hundreds of, I had 200 centers, and they were all very successful with my students. They went from D's and F's to A's and B's within a short period of time and stayed there as long as they used this system. The book is basically how to study, how to stay organized, how to pass tests, how to keep your interest level up. And the interest level is kept up for these children when they start seeing how their grades are improving, if they do what this book tells them to do.
You know, Pamela, thank you very much for articulating all of that. And my follow-up question, I want to go into inspiration. Now, I know you've already started to touch up on the topic, and I'm sure that culminated in this book when you're talking about parents seeking you out and trying to figure out what was happening with their children and why their children weren't maximizing their education from their homework to their studies along the lines. So talk to us, really, why did you feel compelled or inspired to write this book and put it out for the public?
Because I have ADD myself, and I know how difficult school was for me. And I couldn't work up to my ability, and everybody kept telling me how smart I was. But as hard as I tried, I couldn't remember the answers to the questions on the test, even though I had studied. I couldn't remember to get all my homework turned in, or I couldn't find it if I did it. And I would get, in trouble at home, you're just not trying. And I didn't understand what the problem was, of course, until I got older and found out I was ADD. So this system that I developed for my students helps them to stay organized, helps them to remember homework, put it where it can be found. When testing, they study for tests all the time. As soon as they get a new chapter, they immediately start studying for that chapter. And it takes 5 minutes a day just to study their study cards. So when the test comes around, they make really high grades. The parents are also involved in this. The parents have to do some monitoring, not much, but they have to make sure that their child is studying their study card. So they'll hold the study card up with the question on the front and see if they get the answers to the back. So, and that's only 5 minutes a day, so they do that all the time, so their child is always ready for a test. These kids can't remember things that are at a low interest level, especially if there's a lot of it. If they just study the night before the test, if it's an ongoing process, but it doesn't take much time or even much effort once you do it. As far as organization goes, these children make a different decision every day where to put something. So that also interferes with their home life as well as school. This is not just a school problem, it's a everywhere we go problem. Forgetting we do our homework and forget it, leave it at home because we're not organized. Do our homework online, forget to upload it. Teacher's never going to believe that you did your homework and didn't upload it, but that's the things we do. The parents of children with ADD or ADHD, I think they were pretty relieved to find out that what their child's problem was. Most of the parents that came in just thought they were being lazy, and I said, no, they're not being lazy. Mm-hmm. This is a problem with retention of facts, because it's a low level, for us, for SADD people, it's a low level interest. So it's hard for us to recall it, which is why we have to spend 5 minutes a day, 5 days a week, reviewing our study cards. And this shows you how to set those up. And when they use their study cards for 5 minutes, 5 days a week, they made A's and B's on all their tests, whereas before they certainly were not. Yeah. The parents of children with ADHD also need to use different techniques at home. They have to have more structure and routine. Okay, first you do this, and then you can do that. They also have to set up a place when they come home to do their studying so that there's not a lot of interference, because we have a hard time staying focused on low interest level things. We're lazy. It looks like we're not trying, but that's not it at all. We just don't get enough dopamine. Now, they do have dopamine out that you can take. I've taken it. I didn't like the way it made me feel. Most of my students didn't like the way it made them feel, but it did help them to focus when they really, really needed to. But they didn't want to take it every day. This book also teaches how to do things at home. Like a lot of my parents complained, I have to constantly remind him to make his bed, pick up his clothes, do this or do that. And there's words in here, there's trigger words in here to help the child remember to do these things. Mm-hmm. And there's also immediate consequences if you don't. And it's not punishment, it's just like, oh, you forgot to make the bed, so we're going to practice making the bed 2 times in a row. Well, we don't want to make the bed the first time, but if we have to make it twice in a row, then we'll do it next time. Thing is, the parents have to mean what they say. This book basically gets children organized so that they know where everything is, they know when their homework is due, they're always studying for tests, they're always ready for tests. When they came to my centers, we always monitored to make sure that they were staying organized, mm-hmm. that their book bag didn't look like the Black Hole of Calcutta, that they had done their study cards, and we reviewed the study cards with them, because we don't remember what we read, because we remember better what we see. Yeah. We remember better what we see than what we hear or what we read. So we are visual, so we have to study a different way. Mm-hmm. And that's in here too, how to study a different way, more visually. And it really increases the retention so that the grades go up quickly on the tests.
Right. You know, Pamela, again, I think what you've done here is fascinating. And people, I'm going to say it for you again. Amazon and Barnes & Noble are where you have to go. 8 minutes a day to make an A quick. Change your ADHD child now is the title you have to pick up. And Pamela L. Johnson is the author you need to thank for bringing it to your table. And, you know, a lot of times you see that title and I know what you're thinking, right? 8 minutes a day. Is it really that simple? It is.
It really is, as long as it's done consistently.
Exactly.
5 days a week.
Exactly.
I mean, my students went from D's and F's to A's and B's within 4 to 6 weeks and stayed there by using this system.
Yeah. You know,
and I could always tell if the parents weren't doing what they were supposed to do because the grades would come down. So I'd call Mrs. So-and-so, you're not doing your study cards with your child, are you? Well, no. Okay, well, the grades are going to start to come down, so you better, you know. So I had to work with the parents just as much as the children. So this is just as much for parents as it is for the kids. They have to be involved.
Right. Yeah, it's a collective effort, people, and that's another part of this piece of the puzzle that can't be forgotten. Head on over there today, pick up your copies, get lost in it. Pamela, switching gears here, because I want to go into your writing approach a bit. How long, when did you start to write this book? 'Cause I know you said it's been decades in the making, but when did you start writing?
Well, I thought about, after I sold my learning centers, I was thinking, well, what about all these parents that don't know how to do this? I wanted this made available to everyone so that they could use it and get the same results that I was getting in my learning centers. I had 2 learning centers. And both my learning centers use this technique, and my kids, we averaged a 90% success rate, as long as the parents did their job. And I would school the parents. I have the parents come in, you know, for their conferences. And I could tell if the parents weren't doing their job because when we check their binder or to see that, you know, that it's organized, we have to do that too. The parents need to do that. Check their binder, make sure that it's organized and not just shoving papers in hither and yon. Right. So I would check with the parents to make sure they were still following through. And 90% of my parents would follow through, and they were so thrilled with the results. And it didn't take them very long. They only had to spend three to 5 minutes going over the study cards, so their child was always ready for a test, taking a look at their binder to make sure, or their laptop to make sure that everything was in order. Mm-hmm. It was not that difficult. Once it becomes a routine, and that's what we need. We ADD people have to have routine and structure. Once it becomes a routine, then it's easy for everybody to do. It's just like second nature. And the only parents that I had come back, well, his grades have gone down. I said, you're not doing the study cards or monitoring the binder, are you? Well, no. I said, it only takes you 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes to do that. Certainly you could come up with, you know, with that amount of time to help your child or teen. So I said, now you can pay me to do it, or you can do it at home for free. So they said, okay, well, you know, can we bring him back, get his grades back up, and then we'll start all over again. But that didn't happen very often. The parents were just so thrilled to see such a change in their students, in their child, that they would continue to monitor the notebook, the binder, to make sure it was organized, make sure that they were getting their homework turned in, and that they knew their study cards. The study cards are very important because it's really difficult for us ADD people to retain information that is not interesting to us. We can tell you obscure facts that are interesting to us, but, you know, what's 5 times 9? So it's very important that we be consistent in what we do, because we put more effort into things that we're interested in and a whole lot less effort in things that we're not interested in. And when you're in school, you don't get to choose what you're interested in. You have to do well in everything.
You know, follow-up question here. And again, sticking with the writing process for you, Pamela, how long did it take you to write this book?
You know, I don't remember. The information was already in my head. I mean, I knew what to say. I think just making it clear, and I wanted to do some research too, so I could add that in there to verify that what I was doing was what is needed.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a lot of research and found that everything I was doing, was great for ADD kids. I don't know of anyone that has a system for children or teens to help them overcome attention deficit disorder. And the reason why, I don't know why, but I think it's because they think if they put them on medication that that's going to solve the problem. Well, it doesn't. It helps. But you're not always going to be on medication. You have to learn to be organized. You have to learn to be structured. You have to learn to do what you need to do on a daily basis without having to be constantly reminded.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great point that you bring up, and a great segue to my next question here. Pamela, who would you say is your intended reader for this book?
Oh, I can give you a very good example of my intended reader. And it goes like this. Hello? Hi, I really need help. My child is failing. I don't know what to do. We've tried everything. We've taken him out of school. We've put him in private school. We've taken away sports. We've grounded him. Nothing's worked. So we're going to bring him to see you. And maybe you can help us. So the parents absolutely had no idea what to do. Mm-hmm. This tells the parents exactly what to do. And we had, I'd say, a 90% success rate at my learning centers when this was followed. And our teachers were trained to teach the children how to do it. The parents were taught. We taught everybody. We said, okay, all you have to do is this, and they'll be fine.
And what would you say is again, I think this next one, it's safe to assume. But you know what happens when you assume, Pamela, so I'm not going to do that to you. I have you here on the line. We're going to go directly to the source. But in your words, what would you say is the purpose of this book?
Well, my purpose was to help the children be more successful. I saw so many depressed teenagers coming into my centers. They tried everything. They just come in, they look like, oh no, we're going to try something else, and nothing else has worked. And that's what the parents would say. We've tried everything, nothing has worked, so we're coming to you. The strange thing about this whole thing is my center was not set up to do this. I found out when I got my students that I had to set this up because that's the type of student I was getting. So I had to, we used the same materials that we had at my centers, but I had to change how we used them. And I had to reteach my teachers how to help these children learn to stay organized and how to help them retain information. Mm-hmm. Because again, when you have attention deficit, you're very good at what you're interested in. But if you're not interested in something, it's very difficult to retain that information for very long. So low-level information, that's why they had to do the study cards. And they have to do the study cards for 5 minutes, 5 nights a week until they take the test. And they'll make A's because it's a low-level interest. Anything that's a high-level interest, they don't even have to look at the information. They already know it.
And Pamela, very directly, but why do you feel you needed to write this book? I mean, it's coming off as if this was a necessity, almost a call to action. Why did you feel that you needed to write this?
Oh, because I wanted other parents to be able to do the same thing and get the same results that my students had. Mm-hmm. I don't have the learning centers anymore. I'm retired. Anyone that buys this book can do the same thing that my students did at my learning centers. It's exactly the same thing. And it only takes, like I said, 8 minutes a day. There are some things in here on how to keep the child organized, because I found that their backpacks were full of, nothing was organized. So keeping the child organized. And there are parenting techniques in here on how to help the child be more consistent at home, how to establish routines and structure. having routine and structure at home is just as important, if not more so, than being structured when you get, when you're working with your work at school. So it's hard for people who aren't ADD to understand people like us, because we just don't get the neurons don't get excited when we're getting low-level information. We'd much rather say, oh, what's that over there? Oh, this is kind of boring. But when they know that they have to do it, and they'll get rewarded for doing it by making higher grades, and the parents have it set up so that they can be successful by just doing a few things differently, and they know that it's part of a routine, then they just do it.
Mm-hmm. People, listen, there's so much to be found in this book, and we've covered a lot. And here's what I love so much about this is we're at the end of the interview now. We've covered so much information, but yet we've barely scratched the surface. There is still so much left to be discovered, and a lot of great points that we touched up on here today. One, repetition being so key in really solidifying a certain behavior, rewarding that behavior to really incentivize your child. And one of the biggest ones is, people, it's not just your child's responsibility. The parents need to be involved in the process as well to really help reinstate that. I'm telling you,
if the parent is not involved, they're not going to get as much success. The child's not going to get as much success because they're not going to see the need as much.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think that's a great point that you bring up, and something that cannot be overstated. And people, there is so much more. This guide is something you need to have on your shelf. This is something that is a perfect gift for you to get for someone else to add to theirs. So as we close out one last time, Amazon and Barnes & Noble are where you have to go. 8 minutes a day to make an A is the title you have to pick up, and Pamela L. Johnson is the author you need to thank for bringing it to your table. A system that is tried and true and has offered proven results. Head on over there today, pick up your copies, and get lost in all of this. Pamela, this has been a true pleasure, an absolute delight. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you.